My name is Arin Lindauer, and you're listening to A Life Without Struggle. I'm a wife, a mother of 2 wonderful children, a 2-time best-selling author, and a highly driven and successful entrepreneur. In my 17-plus year career as a mindset and health expert, I know what holds women back from a life you only dream about. Whether you're a CEO, a businesswoman, or executive, I started this podcast because I have been where you are, and I know you want and deserve more out of your life. I believe women are limitless. We just get lost along the way. The process to get you there is the topic and purpose of this podcast. When you understand what you want, you can truly step into a life without struggle. Welcome, and I'm so thankful you're here. Welcome back to another episode of Life Without Struggle. My name is Arin Lindauer, and today we're going to dig into a very, very deep topic, a topic that has honestly been hitting home with myself personally, and I know for a lot of you listening, this is going to be just very timely as always. And, I think one of the most important things that I want to share with women is that you're never alone. This journey has its ups, it has its downs. I'll tell you, it has more ups, meaning there's more positive things that can happen, but it's very, very easy to get stuck in the crap, to get stuck in the just not so fun aspects of it. And if I'm being completely transparent, for all of us, this is just 100% bad programming on our part, meaning these are things that we've been so conditioned to. These are things that, we just sort of presuppose. So what's interesting, and this is stemming from just a lot of conversation. I've been having a lot of conversations this week, and we've been talking a lot about helping different clients reset their hormones, reset their metabolism. And there's these predispositions, or we're presupposing that we have all of these problems. Now, okay, listen, I can speak on this because I have been in that exact same spot. There was a point in time and space in my life that, crap was hitting the fan on a daily basis. I was extremely stressed out. We had major things on the line. And for some of you guys, you've heard a lot of my story, but one of the biggest just disruptors in our world was building a custom house and having to sell it back to the builder, which took me, it was like 8 or 9 months to actually learn that he was actually going to buy it back, that we weren't going to have to take them to court and et cetera, because of just knowingly building our home incorrectly on what was it? I think it was 9 pages of violations or something that I had to beg the city to cite. So there was just so much wrapped up in that. And think about it. Your home is typically one of your largest investments you make. It is your safe haven. It is your home for your babies. It is just where you should be able to rest and be at ease. And I kept thinking the damn thing was going to burn down, which probably would have been a good thing as long as we weren't in it, right? So there was this time and space in my life that I didn't even care, because keeping my head above water was basically all I could think about. And what was interesting, our daughter was not even a year old. She actually learned to walk in that home, which is always kind of bittersweet when I think about that memory, but I try to just remember the good stuff. But I just remember that time and space just absolutely not taking care of myself. I barely worked out, which is not me. That's not something that is even part of my language. But, I really chalked it up okay, I had, 2 kids, 2 and under, and I try to tell myself this story all the time, it's okay, every woman goes through this. And I'm sure we all have some version of this story where life has kicked us. We said, well, screw it. Everybody feels this way. Or a lot of other women, they're carrying weight. And we all just have this pity party together because we all need to lose, 10, 20 plus pounds, right? And I really bought into that. I really bought into it was okay to eat all the popcorn, drink all the wine. Actually, I wasn't even drinking wine at that time. I was drinking this amazing, actually, I couldn't even drink them now, which is so funny, but it was a raspberry beer. So anyways, but let's just be real. Okay, if we're going to drink a nice craft beer, those beers are a good 200 plus calories. Let's talk about the sugar, the carbohydrates. And now that I'm disclosing all my stuff, but listen, I'm all about being transparent and telling you hey, I've been there. I understand. And our stories may not exactly be the same where I abused, let's call it alcohol and food. Maybe food is your deal and you're abusing it more than you should because you're trying to cope. You're trying to work through certain things that are going on in your life. And so the title of this podcast and what I want to really dig into is the journey it took me to finally just go all in. And I want to share with you some of the cool things that are happening as a byproduct of just saying, you know what, I'm going to win and I'm going to win more. And I'm going to get my body in check and everything else in my life is going to come along with it. See, I bought the courses. I did the mental programming training. And even I still had reservations with myself. What was interesting is I was on a walk this past week, and here's the deal. I don't really watch the weather because I'm in Indiana and it just all sucks. So I just don't even really pay attention because I just don't. And so if I had looked at the weather, I probably would have chosen to take my walk even just a half an hour earlier or potentially an hour earlier, and it wouldn't have been as dreadful as it was. Okay, so I always look at it just basically okay, is it above 30? If it's above 30, I know I'm going to be fine. Throw on the hoodie, put the hat on, maybe some gloves, and go get them. Now, when it's below, then I get a little more intentional about the gear that I wear. But reasonably speaking, if we're above freezing, I'm just going to get after it. Well, I didn't really pay attention that it was supposed to start either snowing or raining, which of course it started raining. And so I'm on this walk. It was a walk originally, and it turned into a run because I was like, what's worse than being out in the cold? Being out in the cold and being wet. And this wasn't just a light drizzle. This was just a full on, I got soaked. And so I was like, why do I make things harder? And then I will be honest, normally I listen to a podcast. Normally I'm listening to either something that is very science, body, health driven, or I'm listening to something that's very motivational, potentially with a flair of politics in it. And for whatever reason, I was like, I cannot take any more content in. And I just didn't want to think. I wanted to just zone out and really just, not just be in my thoughts, right? And so I was like, okay, let's listen to music. Well, my genre of music changes by the second. I am anything from 90s grunge to country to, I really don't do today's pop. That's probably the only thing that I really don't do. And then all of a sudden I settled on worship music. So I hope you guys are laughing. But I was like, you know what? I really enjoy, I'm very much a Christian. I very much enjoy worship music. And so I was like, you know what? We need on this gloomy freaking day, we need some worship music. And so the second I put on, I don't even know what song it was, but I just instantly started crying. And I started crying because I was so mad about the weather, but it was more a parallel to life. And I'm like, why do you have to make everything so darn hard? And so case in point is I was like, you chose to fuel to feed your body crap. You put weight on, You got frustrated. You're in and out of doctor's offices trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with you when really there wasn't. You just weren't taking care of yourself. And why nobody could just say that is beyond me, but that's a whole nother story. But I kept like banging my head against the wall as I'm like now beating the pavement running because I'm pissed off. I need to get my steps in. This was literally the time that I had. And of course, it's raining and 33 degrees, right? Super fun. And so these tears would not stop because I was so frustrated that once again, here I am making something that should be honestly simple hard. I think about this in so many aspects of my life. How many different ways did I make things harder than what they needed to be? Case in point, I had a very hard birth with our son. I hands down didn't ask enough questions. I didn't understand enough things that I needed to understand in order to deliver him with a little bit more ease. Okay, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. I was frustrated thinking back to this house that we built, and there were so many red flags. There were so many opportunities. The builder would have gladly given us our earnest money back and said, you guys go away. You're crazy. Because we were absolutely crazy. We knew exactly what we wanted, and they kept trying to cut corners. We called them out every single step of the way, but we should have walked away. There were multiple times in the build after a year. It took us a year to build this damn house. And then I look back at the pandemic. I look back at the pandemic and I am so frustrated that I didn't stand up more. I'm so frustrated that I went along with so many things about it. And I'm so frustrated that I felt like I needed to do things because this is what everyone else is doing, or at least everyone in our current sphere of influence was doing. It was something that I looked at it and I go, dang, how come we keep doing everything the hard way? Same with my body. So I have gotten myself back to what most people would consider like decent shape. This is pretty good, right? It's low 20s body fat percentage. You know, I've got a decent amount of lean tissue on my body, but why wouldn't I go one more level? And I was standing looking in the mirror today and I was like, what is your problem? Why are you struggling with going all in on yourself? And so I had to have a sincere conversation that I had to ask myself, girl, what is this? And so there's fear. That was what I uncovered. And so you guys are probably like, holy crap, I can't believe she's telling all these things. But I want you to understand that everybody fights these battles. Everybody goes through this crap. And I will tell you, when you go all in, things start happening, not only from, let's call it from your health, wellness, body, but then other things start showing up in your life. See, Tony and I started about mid-January. And we said, you know what, we're really going to clean up our diet. And for us, cleaning up our diet was just more the little extras. A lot of my clients know that I'm very big on not snacking, or if we do snack, it's an intentional, this is why I need this in my body, and really focusing on those 3 core meals. And even for myself, I can get into, because I mean, listen, you're coming off the holidays, you've had way more sugar in your body than you're used to. And so it's something where I want to think about, like, is this serving me? Is it not? And I was like, man, I know if I would just buckle down just a touch, I could get over this hump. But I kept not doing it, right? And so I kept saying, oh, it's the holidays. Like, you know, if you stay within a few pounds, that's cool. And I did. So finally one day, my husband and I were like, you know what? Like, let's really do this. Like, let's really, so he put a goal of getting to 7% body fat. I'm on a mission to get to 16% body fat. And the funny thing is so we've been doing this now for, what is it? Just a few weeks. And so we basically both looked at each other and it's like, dang, you're seeing some good results. And I'm like, yeah, you are too. And I'm like, why do we wait so long to do this? And Tony's like, you just got to be ready, right? And I was like, yeah, you do have to be ready, but sometimes you also need a kick in the pants. And for me, I had to really face, why aren't you going all in? And I had to really dig into this. For me, I had a lot of fear. There's a fear of the unknown, the fear of, can I really do this? The fear of, what if I fail? And so for me, I can logically work through this. And you're probably sitting there saying, like, why the heck would Arin have fear around her body? And listen, I have fear like anybody else, but on the flip side, the cool thing is with the programming and the training that I have had access to, is I can reasonably step back and go, what is the purpose of this fear? And truly and sincerely, the purpose of this fear is really nothing. Like, what if you fail? Who cares? What is actually failure? Is failure 17% body fat? Most women would kill to have 17% body fat. And for myself, what I uncovered is, Arin, this is a lifelong journey. Just like you share this with your clients, this is no different. And what I'm trying to do is go to this next edge that I have personally gotten myself to 18%, kind of hung out there, and that was pretty good. And then, insert kids and all the stuff that's happened, poof, 7 years have gone by. Now, it's not like I've let myself completely go by any means, but now I'm sitting here saying, hey, girl, take it to the next level. Because when you take it to the next level, first off, I just feel much better. One thing that I know is my confidence, which I'm a pretty confident person, but my confidence just explodes. It explodes because there's no doubt. Like, there's no, don't turn that way, or don't take the photo that way. It's like, dude, what up? Take the photo. And you don't even question, does this fit? If anything, you question, oh crap, is that too big? So that's a very, very interesting, because that's a whole nother side of when you lose enough weight, lose enough fat, recomposition your body, even though maybe you're a certain number on the scale, like the clothes absolutely fit differently. And so, that's a whole nother fun problem to have, right? But the biggest problem that I see with women, and myself included, is we won't go all in on ourselves. And typically what it is there is a fear, there's self-doubt. Can I really do this? What if this happens? What if I have a holiday or a social gathering? What if I have a family get together? What if I have people over to our house and we always have this? There's all these stories that we can create, these narratives, they're personal narratives that hold us hostage and paralyze us in fear. And we never actually go for what we truly, truly want. See, what's interesting too is when you're really honing in, and so our birthdays happened in this time and space. And so I was like, oh, it's going to be our birthdays. And Tony's like, what? We can't still get lean because it's our birthday? And I was like, haha, funny. And so I said to him genuinely, I was like, isn't it funny? Because other people would say, oh, I'll start after my birthday. Oh, I'll start after Valentine's Day. Oh, I'll start after President's Day, right? Like, so we tell ourselves these stories of things that we can or can't do. There will never be a perfect time. But I think what's most important is you decide and you just keep going. You keep going and you make these micro adjustments. What was fun that we did is, we'd already started leaning out, and then we had booked a really fun dinner for our birthdays at a brand new restaurant in our town. And it was a really nice steakhouse. And I just wanted to get dressed up. And it was really fun putting on, different skirts, different dresses. And literally Tony was like, they all look good. And I was like, they do all look good. And that was a really, really good feeling to be able to say, I like them all. Which one should I do? And it was just kind of fun to be able to do that because everything felt good and it looked good. So I share this with you because where do you need to go all in your life? And what is actually holding you back from getting the results that you desire? See, I could take this conversation in so many directions. I could share things from a business standpoint. I could share things from financial standpoint. And if I were to tell you some of the things that would make this an even bigger problem, is I have a huge fear of failing, yet I have no evidence that I've ever failed. Okay. So I have no evidence that I've ever failed. So what story I was able to unpack was, where was my fear to fail? My fear to fail, which I had never had in my life, didn't come until the pandemic, because all of a sudden, shutting down my business, my brick and mortar business, the physical gym that we still to this day have in Indianapolis, we had to shut it down. And all of a sudden, this fear of, what the heck are we going to do? Now, obviously, we pivoted. We did all the things we could to keep everybody on point, and did Zoom workouts and all this stuff. And I will never, ever do that again. But I'll never shut my business down again. So there's that. But all these things flooded into my mind that I had never experienced before until this pandemic. And what I realized is, hey, girl, you fell for this. You got duped, and it's okay to learn from this time and space. Now, it has made it probably one of the most challenging things to grow that business, because to this day, I still have people ask, is it safe to work out in a gym, with the huffing and puffing and people spreading germs? And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, everybody's still a doctor. and so it's just a genuine, interesting space to be in. But what's interesting for some brick and mortar businesses is it hasn't been the easiest time to rebound, to grow. And so this fear kept setting in of, oh my God, what if we fail? Now, when you focus on what if we fail, that's actually what's going to happen. If you keep focusing on, I can't lose weight, I can't lose weight. I cannot tell you how many times a woman will tell me, I can't lose weight, Arin. There's something wrong with me. I can't lose weight. And then what's interesting is she'll get into my program and she absolutely loses weight. Like, you're presupposing that you're going to fail because history is showing you that you've done a program and then you fail or you go right back. But what I know is you haven't changed who you are. Okay, you haven't changed who you are. So what I have had to do is I have had to say, if you're so scared to fail, why? What is the purpose of being scared to fail? What I was able to come up with is, girl, you have never failed. You have been running a business for 16 years that has been profitable. You have employed countless people. You have helped people buy their own houses. You have helped people move on to, bigger and better careers. You have helped employees who have had babies, and I look back at all of these years and I'm like, girl, you have no proof of failing. And so in that, I asked myself, what do I want instead? And I wanted to trust myself, that I follow through, that I do the things, I roll up the sleeves, even when I don't feel like it. Okay. Same with weight loss, same with getting after any type of health, wellness goal, business goal, financial goal, relationship goals. And so then I wanted to pull in a program that hit me just hard and fast. When I was on that walk, the rain was pouring down. I was pissed off. It had gone through my hat, my gloves. Thankfully, I had put my shell on that actually does repel water. So that reasonably kept me okay. Feet were wet. That's how hard it was raining. And it was 33 degrees. So it just felt miserable. And so I asked myself, why do you have to do things the hard way? And I asked myself, okay, what can you learn from this? And so what I've actually just uncovered, and it was really wild because I was unpacking this and talking with Tony. Tony is extremely trained in this training that we have. And so we can have some pretty deep conversations around this stuff. And I was like, man, why do I always have to do things the hard way? Like I got to hustle, grind, I'll figure it out. I'll show them. And I mean, that is honestly a deep program that I have seen my entire life. And again, nothing wrong with our family and the way we were raised. Everybody was doing the best they could with the resources they had. But it's a program that I saw from a very, very young age that I'll get them, I'll figure it out. We'll show them, even if it wasn't the smartest thing to do. Anybody relate to this? So hopefully I'm not alone on this. But what I'm getting at is, we figure out these things, and this just, like I said, it just hit me so hard. Here I am listening to elevation worship music, and I'm having this huge epiphany, like, hey girl, why you got to keep doing things the hard way? All you had to do was look at the weather. If you would have looked at the weather and you would have left a half an hour early, guess what? You would not have experienced this. But I was tinkering around, having another cup of coffee, when in reality, I should have been saddling up and getting my buns out there. So how many times have you done things the hard way? Please tell me that I'm not the only one that does things the hard way. But I realized that this was showing up in other areas of my life. Okay, I have made marketing to be a really hard thing in my world. I've made selling a building a really hard thing in my world. And so I had to really challenge myself that, hey girl, what can you learn from this? And the other thing that is very helpful is, what have you not considered? What was interesting is some really cool developments are unfolding with a property of ours that I was like, oh my gosh, yes, finally. I also had some people reach out to me that I had helped in the past that said, hey, I need help. And like, there's nothing better than that when someone who trusts you and says, hey, I need some help. Like, and it was just this affirmation that, hey girl, when you just let things be easy, when you keep putting yourself out there, letting people know you exist, here's the good work that you do, you're skilled, you're knowledgeable, you've been doing this a long time. It's so awesome. And when you just give people permission to reach out, hey, it's okay. I'm not going to be upset that you didn't, keep weight off. Like, listen, stuff happens. Life happens. In particular, one has just been through some really terrible medical stuff that, like, nobody could have foreseen it. And so, of course, we've got to regroup and retake care of ourselves. And I'm just so thankful that, they would feel comfortable coming back. So quit making things hard. Okay, it's a choice. It is 100% a choice, but it's also identifying it and understanding that it actually exists in your programming. So I want you to understand that when you can step back and understand, dang, I have some fears. I have some belief systems that are not serving me. And asking yourself the hard questions. See, a lot of people won't ask the hard questions because they don't want to know. They don't want to do the inner work. It's very interesting to me when I'll be on a coaching call and we identify something that is potentially holding someone back, and then they just completely shut down. Now, I'm trained enough to know that, hey, sometimes someone does need a second. Okay, sometimes somebody, like you broke their internal representation of themselves. And so it is going to take a second to like regroup and come back to that conversation. And also sometimes you have to have someone call you out. You have to have someone who loves you enough, who cares about you enough to say, hey girl, you're not taking care of your health. You think you're doing a good job, but listen, you've got to take it another level. See, when I looked in the mirror, honestly, just a second ago, and I was so excited this morning when I saw a new number on the scale, and I was like, dang girl, you're doing it. Like, this is really cool. And I even said to myself, man, just 5 more pounds, which, you could drag that out and make it take forever, or you could just get a little uncomfortable right now, a little cranky, but listen, drink another cup of coffee and we'll get through it. But no, just drink some water. Actually, coffee with caffeine is fine. But you realize like, man, you've been leaving so much on the table. And when I was just staring, sorry, I'm just going to be very frank. Like I was staring at my body and, I've never been one to like completely critique and like sit there, but I was like, okay, this is going to look pretty cool. And I'm pretty proud because I've spent a few years just really focusing on lean tissue because it does take time. It takes time to put that on your body. And I was like, dang, you pull this fat off and you're going to love your look. And it was like I was talking to a client, but I was actually talking to myself. And I was looking and I was like, why not? It's going to be so fun. And the only thing that kept playing through my head is like, feeling so good in that bikini again. Like, why not? Why not feel so good? And I think it's very, very easy, especially here in the Midwest, that we can cover up and nobody's going to see us, till maybe May. God, sometimes May is still terrible and you can't even really get out there till June and July. So anyways, I hope some of this stuff really hits home because what I'm finding as a byproduct of totally going all in on myself is so many other things in my life are coming together. When you wake up, and I'm just going to share this. When you wake up and your Aura ring says, you are fully recovered, I'm like, yes, I am. Or when your sleep score is like in the 90s, which I never get, I was like, wow, this is what I can feel like on a daily basis. I'm sold. Like, give me some more of this. So it's amazing how quickly things start aligning when you just simply make a shift. See, for me, I had to go out and run in the rain, and which I didn't even plan on running, but I was like, I got to get this over with. But, I'm listening to the worship music and, honestly, I did a few crying out to God saying, what the heck is my problem? What is going on? And honestly, it was in those moments that I just got really, really real with myself. And I started to ask myself the hard questions that I had been unwilling to answer. So I asked the questions, I got real with myself, I faced these fears, and I could logically say, hey girl, like none of this is real. You're making all of this up. See, all of our emotions are ours. They're ours. Nobody makes us feel any which way. You choose to feel sadness. You choose to feel guilt. The second you understand that that's yours and you get to own it, and this can be a very, very tough space. There's also secondary gains that come into this. This secondary gain is a very, very dangerous space. I used to have a huge secondary gain to talking about how depressed I was because I had a 55-hour birth. I almost died. My son almost died. And I used to own that story. That was me. And I finally, that was going to happen. But I finally just had to say, it's not me anymore. Not me anymore. Yeah, I had a tough birth. That sucked. But I learned a lot through it. I learned so much so quick that 21 months later, I forget how old they are. 21 months later, I was able to come back and birth our daughter in a beautiful water birth. That is someone who gets after it and says, you know what, screw this. This is not going to depict my life. That's what I want you to do with your weight loss journey, because I want this to not depict your life. I want this to be a time and space where you learn a shit ton. I want this to be a time and space where you say enough's enough. And I want you to go all in. And so if this hit home today, because listen, I just kind of poured myself out there to you, and hopefully that was okay being super transparent. And I want you to share this. I want you to share this message. If you would be so kind to share it on your social medias, if you would be so kind to share it with a friend, just simply take the link and send it to them in a text. I really appreciate that. And listen, if you're listening to this for the first time and you're like, holy crap, who's this girl? Like, consider reaching out. If you've got a health and wellness goal, if you want to lose some weight, that's what I do. I really empower women to do it the right way and do it for life. And I'm also going to challenge you and empower you to really step into who you want to become. It's not an easy conversation. We like to stay in our little comfort zones, and that's cool. But I'm going to challenge you to grow. I'm going to challenge you to be the woman you never even realized you could be. So ask for help. If you've been sitting on the fence about should I hire a coach, let this be the one moment in time that you're like, nope, I got to reach out to her. All right, thank you for listening in. Shoot me any questions, and more than anything, go all in on you. All right, take care.